thing I might do in the morning before I even start on the Chrysler is clean this mess up. I got a pile of wood and metal and a variety of things left over from my most recent projects, and I can spend some time getting them squared away too, I do believe. And I was talking about that car where it's sitting. You know, if I did move that lift backward, I could come back. I get this car in here straight, I could come back. I probably got a good 3 or 4 feet back here, so I could move that lift back and get the car up and get the door closed with it up. So that's something else I'll look at in the morning. I'm going to move the big Chrysler and relocate the jack stand, because I'm thinking I can move it back 3 or 4 feet. And we went out for breakfast this morning, jumped in the little Prius, and it had a flat tire. So I think what I'm going to do instead is move the big Chrysler and bring the Prius in and fix that tire, and then move the jack stand, and then move the Chrysler back in, and then go from there. So that's the plan. Sort of. So far as we can tell at this point. I could not find any air bubbling out of them anywhere. So I'm going to squirt a little bit of this green slime in them and check the pressure and pump them back up and just keep an eye on it, see what it does over the course of the next number of days. then, I think that's okay. I think from that angle I could work on it. I'm going to disconnect that battery again because these brake lights are stuck on, like I mentioned earlier. And the pedal's not returning all the way. But they still don't go out. So I'm just going to disconnect the battery terminal. Now I don't think I'm going to start this project today until I finish cleaning up from my last one. And I've got a pile of stuff laying outside the garage and I don't want that to be there. So I need to clean all this up. Yeah, my brake lights are on. That's interesting. I wonder if they are on because of the emergency brakes, or I wonder if they're on because this brake is sticking. I know that I had some trouble with my brake. Yeah, my pedal was stuck down. That brake hasn't been acting correctly. That would probably account for my... Oh, still got brake lights on. Okay, well let's try. I'm going to release the emergency brake. Still on. Well, let's see. Is there any chance we got lights turned on here? I don't know which ones are the lights. Let's see. So for whatever reason, those brake lights are staying on. I'm gonna guess they're either activated by a brake fluid pressure switch on the master cylinder or an electronic switch on the pedal, either one of which is fixable. But since I'm going to be swapping out the cylinder, I don't see a switch on it, so it may be a pedal. I do have a goodly bit of room to work around up in here for getting these brakes off and back on, so that's good. I bet you that pedal isn't coming all the way back. Well, that's something I can sort out as I go. I'm going to have my share of stuff. What I might do is go ahead and disconnect the battery. I don't know how tight these things are, not very. I'm just going to go ahead and disconnect the battery. I don't have to worry about that. The other concern I kind of have is how this new brake cylinder is going to fit. He had me, the guy that made this kit for me, had me buy a master cylinder for a Chevrolet. Oh, I don't know. I don't know if I really want to get into all this back here yet. Maybe I'll leave that till the morning. I'll come back out here in the morning and we'll start. I might kick this ramp over. Of course, the car is a little sideways too, but I could move that ramp over a little. I guess another option I could do is move the ramp back a little too, because one of the things that's going to happen when that ramp comes up, that front of that car is going to be sticking out of the garage. So I guess if I wanted to get the garage door closed, but we got a pretty goodly bit of room right here. So I didn't leave a lot of room back in the back because of the way she's in here crooked, but I'll deal with all that tomorrow. I think tonight I'm gonna let her sit. We'll come out here tomorrow with a fresh set of eyeballs and we'll take it from there. Well, the weather here is amazingly fabulous. We did our volunteer work at the fair today and got a guy coming to get the camper here, supposedly in a few minutes. And I thought, well, now we got the garage kind of cleaned out, it might be a good day to bring the big Chrysler around and see how she's going to fit in here. Because I'd like to do those disc brakes. And I may want to start on them first thing in the morning. So I think I see there's a big old, these two big ramps over here. I think I can move them. So we got a little more room back in here. And see how she comes. See how she comes, see how she goes. So when I went to crank it first thing a while ago, the battery was a little bit on the low side. I have not had this battery on the battery tender, and she's just been sitting out here. So she's about due for a little charge. Put a little charger on there. Got to give her a couple 3 minutes to see if she's going to fire up. Looking mighty fine. Which is the best way to go, whether it's better to go headed in or maybe best to back it in, although I don't know if that nose is going to be sticking out of there once I get her in place and up on the lift. Brakes are squeaky. Oh, we'll be replacing them. I guess one of the other things I wanted to do while I was here was pick up the Chrysler and see if with the engine, with the car lift right there, it would clear the door. And I think it will. You can see the door line here. I'll give it the big test by easing the door down at the little handle that sticks out there. What I'll do is I'll just hold it as I come down with it like this. Let's see, there's the door, there's the handle, we're good, we got clearance. So with my lift right there, I can have the car all up in the air here, have plenty of clearance. once the other option, well, I guess I started to say the other option would be turn it around and have the front wheels facing back. I was thinking in order to get out of the sunlight, but if I wanted to get out of the sunlight, I could also just pull the door down. Of course, I get a little breeze this way. I don't know if there's any advantage of turning it the other way, especially, well, there's a lot of room on this side now, which there wasn't before. And the other thing, this might be a good time just to do this test, because it's kind of a fun test. I was mentioning the other day that I got these wheel adapters to see if those big fat 8-inch wheels would fit under these fenders, because if you look back here, I got, I'm zoomed the wrong way. I've got a pretty good bit of space here. This is oh, I don't know. Let me just say inches. I got inches of space. Those adapters, though, they add an inch, so that might be a problem. I started to say I'd just throw them fat wheels on here and see how they look. And with them being as wide as they are, I guess the only way to really tell is just to try it. It might be kind of fun to try it, see how they look. I was about to say I'm going to sneeze, but I sneezed before I could say it. Okay, so I went ahead and put the adapters on here, and I'm going to go get those 8-inch wheels. Some of you will recognize those wheels. They're the ones that I scrubbed on the rat rod with a grinder, and it's shown up all over the internet. A lot of different folks. Some people have, I think, stolen parts of their clip and put them up, whatever. But anyway, same wheels, same tires. We'll see if they'll fit on here, and if they do, we'll see how they fit and see how they look. Might be kind of fun. I guess I'm just having a little fun today. You know, I kept thinking I'm going to get out there and do some cleanup, but cleanup feels like work and doing this feels like fun, so right now I'm opting for the fun. I'll get to the cleanup in a while. Okay, I am pretty sure that would scrub. If you see where my finger is and the tire is, as soon as this comes down and this goes up, that's going to be digging right into that. So I don't really think I wanted to run these on this car, because to me they're kind of cool, but they're kind of silly too. But it does tell me what I need to know. This is a Chevy wheel with a Ford adapter that adds an inch. It's an 8-inch reverse wheel. Now so that tells me if I had something like an 8-inch Chrysler, an 8-inch Ford rim, so that I didn't need the adapter, I would gain an inch, so I could get an 8-inch, like an 8-inch Krager mag wheel on the back of this car with a tire that could be somewhat taller. It feels like I got a lot. I can't see up in there, but I'm sure I feel like I got a lot of fender space up in there. So that would certainly be an option and something to think about. That's pretty far out right there. That is. Probably not a direction I would go in, but I might go with the wider wheel on the back, though. Just saying, you know. Just saying. So now I know. Now I know. I was about to say that this wheel would work, or a wheel of this width would work. Now this is a 14-inch wheel. It's hard to get a big enough tire as big as I want in a 14-inch tire. I'm thinking I would want to go with a 16-inch, but if I put my ruler here, keep in mind this isn't bolted on. I'm going to kind of hold it. If I put my ruler there, I don't think you can see that. Maybe I can put my foot on it. Let's see if this works. Well, I can't put my foot on it and reach it. But anyway, take my word for it. If I'm holding this tire with that ruler right there, then that ruler is going up and under my fender, and there's clearance. There's room for a tire to be up in there. That's all I'm saying. So I'm pretty sure I can get an 8-inch wheel on the back of this car with these are old style. They used to call these like G70s, G60s, G50s and L's and all that. I think these were bias ply. These were before radials, I think. Nowadays they're like, what do they call them? They got a different number series anyway. But I always thought this car would look really cool with a set of Kragers on it and some fat tires. I got one tire around here and a 14-inch rim that would fit on the front of here. That is one of those big fat radials, and I'd like to, I don't think I can get a fat radial on this one. I mean, I could get it on here, but I want a tire that's larger diameter to get a little more fuel mileage. I've probably talked enough about this because I'm starting not to even understand what I'm saying, so I'll stop talking and put my tire back on here, and we'll go move some rubbish or something. Thanks for listening. Okay, so I loaded up, I took all that scaffolding lumber and I put it down in the back there. I had this open sign. I used to have it out front for a while, and then I took it down because I didn't want people driving up here and thinking I was actually running a real business, which I kind of am, but I kind of don't want customers, if that makes any sense. So, but I just put it up in here because I think that's kind of cool to be back there just flashing when I turn the lights on. It goes off when I turn the lights off, so it doesn't need to be on all the time. And now I am just picking up, let's see, where's my camera stand? Now I'm just picking up stuff out here, as I mentioned before that I was going to do. I'm picking up stuff. So you can watch me sort and pick up stuff if you want. I tell you, the other thing that's big on my list of things that I want to do is I want to get the Chrysler out and crank it. The last few times I've had it out, it hadn't run well. It acts like it's out of gas, and I was thinking, well, it might not have any gas in it. You know, I put it away last year, and I might have run all the gas out of it, and I've had it going around here a couple of times, but it hadn't run much. I thought, well, it may be no gas in it. But anyway, that's something I want to do, and that's something that would be enjoyable. So I'll get back to doing this work, and then maybe I can get some of that kind of fun stuff squeezed into the mix too. Oh, the joy! Okay, I got that off. It's different, but maybe somewhat the same, and it may, because of the way it's different, it might actually work pretty well. And one of the things that the guy that set these brakes up mentioned to me was that there was an adjuster on the end of this rod that allowed you to adjust it in and out, so you didn't have to do a lot of other weird work. On the back of this cylinder, there is no neck. What I mean by neck is that part that sticks out there doesn't stick out back here. Having said that, and keep in mind I'm going to be, having said that, the rod, I might as well go ahead and unscrew that thing because I can see it ain't going back on there anyway, so I might as well go ahead and just pop it. If I can spin that without it all spilling out. Maybe one way to do it. Okay, having said that, the rod goes up in there a goodly bit. Let's look at this. So on that one, let me find a screwdriver, stick up in there. That may also account for why that pedal wasn't returning enough. You notice I was reaching in there and pulling the pedal, but on this one, that rod is in there about an inch. On this one, it sticks out this way about, I'm guessing that's a ½ inch. So if I can shorten this rod, and I believe this hole will fit inside of that hole, I can remount. Oh, look, Well, it almost looks like there's a couple of bolt holes there, but I don't think they are bolt holes. I think they're screw holes for something. And maybe there's a gasket screwed onto that. Might be what that is. But I believe this will fit inside of there. And then I could come off these screws and make me a plate to go over this to attach that. And what I would need to be able to do is to get this rod in there deeper. I know this turns. I don't know if that goes in when it turns or not. Doesn't look like it is. There's usually a way to adjust these things on the back of the pedal or up under there, up underneath there. See if I can see that. I'm gonna get me a rag because I don't want to. I got things I'm gonna be touching up in there that I don't want to get fingerprints all over. Probably ought to go ahead and get a flashlight. Two, otherwise I won't be able to see anything. Okay. Now on the pedal, there's going to be a rod attached up in here. Let's see if I can get my hand up and see it. By the way, there's my, look at that. Right there is my on and off switch for my brake light. And the reason the brake light ain't working, remember I was wondering why the brake light wasn't working, going on and off? Well, switch. And some cars, and the Ramblers like this, they'll have a little switch here that goes in and out. That's what makes your brake light work. I don't know if you can see what my finger's doing there or not. In this case, this switch is not lined up with the pedal. So that's what's causing my lights to stay on. Now there's a rod, I don't think you can see it. If I keep the camera like this, a rod right here that comes off the pedal that works that. It would be beneficial to me if I can get that rod disconnected. It almost feels like the bolt for that is loose. I'm gonna need to move the seat back and get on my head. So I'm gonna set y'all over here for a minute, cut the camera off. I'm about to start the process of converting this car from shoe brakes to disc brakes. I'm going to start with the master cylinder. This is a single reservoir master cylinder, meaning it has one reservoir. If this goes dry, or if you break a brake line anywhere, you lose brakes on all four wheels. This is a dual reservoir with dual lines. So if one side or the other goes dry, you will still have brakes. You might lose brakes on the rear or the front, but you shouldn't lose them both. And by the same token, if you break a brake line, you have two separate brake lines. One goes to the rear, one goes to the front. And so if you broke a brake line, you should still have brakes either to the rear or to the front. Now this is the booster, and this is actually not the booster that came or was standard equipment on this type of car. This is I believe the guy that sold me the brake system said he thought this was probably like a 54 Dodge type booster. You'll notice the cylinder here has 4 bolts, 1, 2, 3, 4. This cylinder, which is a GM style, has 2. If that tail end part, this is the part that gets mashed, will fit into the hole on this one, I may be able to take this one off and make an adapter and put that one on this one and adapt it to fit. The only way to tell really is to pull this off, which I'm going to do. First I'm going to loosen this connection here because it's a lot easier to loosen when this is all solid than it is when it's flopping around under the hood there. Basically I'll be disabling the brakes first thing. Then after I get that loosened, I will basically take these 4 bolts out, pull this out, and see if this whole shaft kind of matches the whole shaft in the back of this. If not, I have seen where they're selling these for a 61 Newport with a GM style cylinder like that. And what I may do is see if I can take that one back to the parts store and replace the whole cylinder. But hard to tell unless I have gotten more information. If I discover that that won't fit, probably what I want to do is take that whole booster off and then kind of see what the backside should be 4 bolts into the firewall there, but we won't really know until we get it to the point. And what puzzles me on this one is I think there should be a vacuum line attached here. That's what these brakes are. They're vacuum booster brakes, and if there's no vacuum line there, what powers these boosters? That's what I'm thinking about. So before I even go there, let me take these bolts loose, get these bolts loose, and we'll kind of play with them. There's a fella out there on the YouTube called Toe Wrecker, lives down in Tennessee. He actually owns one of the original 49 Fords from the movie Thunder Road, which is my favorite classic as a kid. Anyway, Toe Wrecker turned me on to this CRC freeze-off stuff to use specifically for brake lines. It has turned out to be the best stuff I've found to free up frozen bolts. The other thing he turned me on to were these little open-end 6-point brake wrenches, which will, because they're open, they'll go over the brake line and then they'll slide on there, but they have that 6-point action so that once they get a hold of something, you know, they got it, and they're not as prone to slip as almost any other kind of wrench would be. So I just thought I'd share that with you. That's something that I keep in my special collection of tools over here, is these wrenches specifically. I've got metric and regular, but these are specifically for brake line work. And I keep a couple of cans of that freeze off, because I use it for all sorts of stuff. So with that said, I've got this line loose. I haven't taken it off, but it's loose. So I'm going to loosen these nuts and pull this out and have a look at the back side of it. Okay then. I want my little plate there. Now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to reach up on one side of this pedal and hold it with this 5/8 box end wrench right here. There. I'm going to reach up on the other side over the steering column with this 3/4 inch socket and come in from the other side and get a grip on that bolt. And I'm going to hold them both. See if we can get that off of there. Alrighty then, that worked.
So I'm going to slide that bolt out. And that might allow me to push or pull this rod out. Comes out that way. So what that's telling me, I believe, is this is going to be a two-piece rod. Because this piece that came out doesn't have that adjuster on it yet. See, this rod is still here. So I'm guessing this rod comes in from the back and pushes that. I'm probably going to want to get this whole cylinder off of here next, which is going to mean, I believe, these pieces here are part of what's holding that on there. Let me go, I'm going to go in. See, that's my brake rod. I wonder if this will come loose without me having to get up inside the firewall and hold the nut. A lot of you old guys can't do what I'm about to do because I'm young and virile, and you're not. But our youngness and virility is a contributing factor, and it's caused by wearing old t-shirts from Cutworm, who is about the youngest and most virile of us all. Just saying. Okay, so, yep, there's my bolt. See that? That looks like it's either a 9/16 or 5/8. If I can get my hand up in there and turn that, it is a locking bolt. Mercy sakes. Another option for me to do here is to change and cut and remake this bolt, which I've done. I did that on a Rambler. Worked out just fine. So I'm going to need a couple of wrenches, wrench and a socket, something like that. I believe that's 9/16, but it might be a 5/8. Only way to tell for sure is to climb out from here and go get my tools and come back. I'm going to do that now. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. We can do this. Oh yeah. We can do this. Woohoo! One side of that's 5/8, one side is a 3/4. I can't even see me what I'm doing in there, can you? So I'm going to share what I've got so far, and keep in mind I'm sort of feeling my way along with the instructions and the pictures. And I believe I'm on the right track here. This is the new piece that comes with the kit. This is the piece that the caliper will bolt to. And here's the caliper. You can see the bolt holes there and there, there and there. And it'll go on like that, and the drum will be in the middle. So, before the drum goes on, and keep in mind this steering bar
bolts in two places on the back, and then this caliper mount bolts in the other two holes. The picture made it look like it was kind of facing one way, but then when they showed the back side of it, I could see, oh yeah, that's how that works. So that kind of makes sense, and that's the only way it would go. So with that said, the next step, what did I do with that thing I had in my hand? This is an adapter. This adapts the spindle to a different size bearing, because what's going to be happening here is we're going to be putting a different bearing on here to make a different wheel fit this. And I'm going to go, I'm kind of just loosely putting things together here, but I'm going to go back to here because I'm going to want to use some Loctite on the adapter. Pack the inner wheel bearing with grease and install rotor. Install seal in the rotor. So let's get the rotor out. My rotor right here. And in this case, A and J, or A and J, whatever it is, I'll make this all clear later. But they didn't send me the rotors. I got them at the parts store. He said, you know, for the amount of money it's going to cost to ship them, you'd be better off just to buy them locally, which I've done here. So, let's get this out. And it doesn't have bearings in it. I'm going to need to install the bearings. It does have the race in it. So, maybe I should put this together a little bit and then cut the camera back. What I think is going to happen is that this bearing is going to go in the back of this wheel, and then this is the seal, and it goes in here, and you need to grease your bearing and pack this with grease, and then this seal goes in on the back side of that, and then this other small bearing is going to go on the outside too. I'm going to try slipping that in place without grease and without the rear seal, because the rear seal will need to be greased, or the bearing will need to be greased before I put that seal in there. But just so we can see how that goes, this should fit onto that. And I got it backwards. It goes this way, like that. See how nice that fits? And then this, did y'all see that? This bearing is the rear bearing, goes into that. And that slips on there nicely. But it only goes into that after it's been put in the wheel. So after it's greased, I will put it in the wheel here. And then I will take this grease seal here. I'm just going to set it on there, but I'm not going to install it. So the grease seal will go into the back of the wheel. I'm not sure if it's like that or like that. I'm going to read, I'm thinking like that, but I'm going to read the instructions, but I'm not installing that yet. But that will go into there. And then this other little bearing, keep in mind this is just a dry run, or a run through, or whatever you want to call it. The other bearing will go on the outside of that. So it's the smaller one. And it's going to fit out here. Like that. So I'm going to just, it's going to fit out here like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to slide this wheel on there. I'm going to slide that bearing in place. There's no grease and there's no seal right now. I'm just doing this to check the fit. So that will go on like that. This will go on like this. And that will turn like that. Now, I'm going to stick a nut on that just to hold it. I'll clean off and use the old nut. You might have a new nut that came with it, but I'm just going to stick this old one on there just for temporary, because we're gonna set the pads and the caliper in place also before I put anything together permanently. So that's going to go somewhat, but not exactly like that. Okay. Then the caliper has its own little rods. I'll get a couple of them. I think these have a name, something like a banjo rod or something, but I can't say for sure. And they will fit like a caliper. The caliper, these bolts go in from the back like this, and they screw into that. This should be threaded here so that these screw into place. And they are. I'll bring this over here so you can see that. See, these come in from the back, they go through these little holes, they're threaded so they screw into place. And then your caliper, the back side of it rests back here, and this front side rides on this part. Now I'm gonna set the caliper in place. This is not a permanent installation, I'll say that one more time. By the way, your brake line is going to connect here. No, not there. The brake line is going to connect here, but we'll get to that later. So, we're just checking that everything kind of fits before we put it on. So this goes back here. Okay, I'm not going to put it on more than that, but you can see how that fits. Now the other piece that's not in there is the don't call them shoes, they're pads. They're pads. So here's my parts list. We have rotors, bearings, and seals for a 76 Dodge Dart. We have calipers and pads from a 72 Charger, and we have hoses from a 76 Monte Carlo. Okay, so I don't have calipers. I guess when I picked up the I mean, I don't have pads. I have calipers, I don't have pads. So I'm going to need some of those. I guess the other thing I ought to check is make sure my hoses are going to fit these ones. It's two. I don't know if this camera was running, it cut off. Made me wonder if maybe it wasn't even running, but what I'm doing is taking this off, I've taken these two screws out. I've taken the two screws on the left out. It feels fairly loose. So I'm going to take the two on the right out. Those are the screws that go through and attach to the same thing that holds the steering column in place. But it could get a little weird popping that off, but no other way around it. I'm going to have to understand what I'm dealing with here and make up my mind whether I can put it all back together and adapt it, or whether I'm going to have to order something new. Of course, the only way to do this is take it off so I can get a look at it. I might have to come in from a different angle to reach that. Oh, that's fun. Can we get it? I think I got it. Lost my socket though. Where's it at? Must got stuck up in there somewhere. There it is. Alright, one more. I don't know if y'all can see what I'm doing up in there or not. That's the fourth one, so
I've done everything correctly. That booster should be about ready to pop off of there. Now I have an option to order a booster with an master cylinder and everything already mounted to it. And I might. One of the reasons I would take this off first is because if I need to do that, I can go ahead and order that. And while I'm waiting for it, I can be working on attaching the brakes at the wheels. That's what I wanted. That has been monkeyed with a bit. Y'all see the hole there? I'm guessing, look at all this. I'm guessing the original booster attached down here. I don't even know. These two bolts up here aren't even holding anything. So basically what was holding this was these two bolts in the bottom and this thing up here that went up here. And this goes down into that. And that's going to be my yeah. Here's what I think I'm going to do now that I've seen that. And this isn't, by the way, I've been told this isn't the original booster that came with this car. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go inside and find, I have an eBay thing that has the booster and the cylinder all connected to attach, I believe, to that. It has 4 bolts on the back side of that. Whatever I come up with can't be any worse than that, I'm thinking. I mean, if I can line it up to the brake shaft, I can make it work. So, let's pause. Let's pause and reflect. And on this brake drum, it's not necessary to take everything apart if you don't have to. If I can unbolt this entire backing plate without taking off the shoes and everything, and that's going to work to my advantage because I don't need to do any extra work. So what I need to do is figure out what it's holding on, what the backing plate is held on by. I believe these bolts here, these 4 bolts, coincide with these bolts back here, so that if I can get them freed up, I might be able to unbolt this, slide the whole thing off, including the brake line. Because see, if I get the brake line loose from here and don't have to take all this other stuff off, that will make this a lot quicker and easier. Get that off, put the new backing plates in place, and I'm going to soak the back side of these bolts in it. They've probably never been off the car, so they're probably on there pretty well. So this backside piece here is 11/16. Let's see what we can find. Might need to put a big socket on that. A big pipe, I mean, which is certainly doable. I really think about what I'm doing here. Really easy to be turning that the wrong way. That's the right way. Okay. So what I am going to do is put on the outside of the car there. I need a little socket right here. And I might wind up going with a pull bar. There's a ratchet to break them loose with. Looks like the threads is messed up on this one. Right there. Lift some Might have tried to put something on there that didn't fit. It messed the threads up. Alright. So, let me check and see if I've got a 6.11/16 anywhere before I go any further. Option I could try is getting my air wrench back in here and working it into there, letting it woggle it around a little bit. There. That's on there good. I'm gonna get me a pipe. Put some weight out here. Yes. Sometimes you have to do a little work to get the angle right when you're trying to do something like this. Because you need enough leverage. You'll get your pipe on there and work it down. See, that's turning fine. It wasn't too tight actually, once I got something on it that I could work with. See if I can let you get up in here. Maybe. Let's see. Sort of what I'm doing. Now that that's moving, another option is to put a smaller drive socket on there that I can put a ratchet on and turn. Oh, that one was nice and loose. That last one comes off that easy. I'll be lucky, very lucky. That last one's going to be the hardest one to get to, too. I don't believe I can get a socket on it, so I'm going to have to do that with a regular wrench. The way it's located down in here. Get a wrench on it. But it's going to be hard to figure out. What I might do is get me a rag, clean my hands, get a hammer, and just try hitting that with a hammer a few times. That works sometimes too. Get another rag. Hey, we're making progress. Y'all still with me in there? I don't know if you can see me up in the dark here, but it's turning. Turning it. In this case, I'm turning the whole bolt, so I've got to put this 5/8 out on this end. Put a little 5/8 wrench out in here to hold that way. In fact, I might could get a 5/8 socket and hook it to the air gun. Just give it the spin on the air gun. That might do the trick too. Let's see what we can find here. up. Hey, look at that. That's what we wanted right there. Okay, folks. So this is my spindle without the brake, backing plate, and all of that. And this is what the new disc brake things are going to mount to. Now I'm going to wash my hands and come back and bring all my parts around here and sort out where we go from there. Okay, this is where we begin. We get the front wheel off, and then we'll get the brake and pull the I'll explain it as we go. But we'll start off by getting the front wheel off. So that's what we're going to do right now. I might want to check. I don't have this up very high. I might want it a little higher, but I'm also sure I got a position so I can get that door closed if I need. These are regular left-handed threads. The other side has right-handed threads on it. That's good from the factory. That's something I'll be doing away with. In the process of doing all this, those will go. This car has on it new ball joints top and bottom, and I'm going to replace the shocks while I'm in here. And this car has an interesting brake setup. One of the things I noticed about it, it has two cylinders. There's a brake cylinder there. There's a brake cylinder down there. And this brake was locking up, which is kind of weird. But all of that's going anyway, including the spindle. Cute little rascal. I might have said the spindle was going to go, but it's not actually the spindle, it's the hub that's going to go. The spindle is the part that points out that everything rides on. The hub is the part that spins on it. I thought my camera was running, but it wasn't. But I just pulled this cap off, I pulled this pin out, and then I'm going to loosen the nut that holds that front wheel on. I need to get me a rag because I already got grease sticking to my thing there. And this is just a little locking cover that locks that pin in place, and that is not tight at all. Let me go get a rag. That front, that nut being loose there, well, that probably doesn't matter. I started to say it could have been a factor in that thing locking up, but I don't think it could. I don't think it was. Not like it's wobbly or anything like that. I did this job on my Rambler years ago. I was actually before anybody was making videos. I was actually before YouTube was invented. I took a bunch of pictures of it, and then later on I actually put them on a website back in the day. But then later on, when YouTube came along, I took those pictures and tried to make a little video of that process. That's probably, I know it's in there somewhere, you can find it. But generally on these old cars, changing them over to disc is one of the best things you can do for your brakes for so many reasons. Just for many reasons. So I highly recommend doing that. So this is going to be the this nut is going to loosen up the spindle. I should be able to wiggle it and then pop the bearings off of there. If y'all can see that from that angle or not. Maybe. See, when I pull this a little, it should allow me, there's going to be a little cover on this bearing to sort of put that thing right there. It's a big washer with a notch in it, And then the little bearing's going to come off. What this is. And then the whole hub's going to come off. And it has a bearing in the back side of it. It looks like that. Now, I'm going to want to take the brakes off. And I don't think I have to worry too much about the brake lines because they will be replaced. But what I did on the Rambler, and what I think I'm going to do here, because it's usually pretty helpful, is there's a place where the brake lines attach right there. And even though this rubber part I'm going to be replacing, that little part right there, I'm going to see if I can get out without killing it, which is going to mean getting out the freeze off and my little special wrenches and stuff. I'm going to work on that. Okay, here's where we are with that. I went online, found a booster cylinder and dual reservoir brake cylinder that I could order to literally to fit this car. I don't know what this is. I think the guy that made my brakes out in I think he's out in Arizona somewhere, maybe up in Washington. Anyway, he thought this was probably off like a 54 Dodge, and this is a regular, you know, Dodge style single reservoir brake cylinder. There's a bunch of them out there, and you can tell by all the different holes in the firewall that somebody's monkeyed that up quite a bit. So what I'm going to do is put all this in a separate place, kind of box it up in case anybody else ever wants it, and who knows, I might want it someday for a hot rod of some type. And I went ahead and ordered that new one. So what I can do is go ahead and start changing the front wheels brake parts. That's going to involve taking off the shoe brakes, backing plates, the lines, putting on new backing plates and disc and calipers and all that stuff. And it's going to involve rerunning my brake lines and stuff like that. If you notice, this is a single brake line that goes down and splits. One end goes to the front, one end goes to the back. What's going to have on here when I finish is going to be two sets of brake lines. I can still connect it to the front and the back brakes, but there'll be two separate lines, one that runs to the front, one that runs to the back, and that'll probably be different sets of rubber lines. Well, I know it will be going to the wheels because that's all a different type of setup. So I'm going to stick these screws back in up under the firewall just to make sure that they stay in place, and I'll attach the other screws here and here. That way we can kind of hang on to them until we figure out what we're going to need once we get our new one. I'll box up that booster. I don't know if I can send this thing. I don't think I can send this thing back to the place where I bought it. But we'll check on that. One more thing I'll say about this all. One of the projects that I've got in line to do is to pull the motor out of the rat rod and fix that hydraulic master cylinder clutch. And it has a I said master cylinder, I should have said throwout bearing clutch. It has a hydraulic master for the hydraulic clutch that's an aftermarket product, and I wasn't terribly fond of it when I put it in there. What I might do is take that Dodge one that I just took out of that car, that Chrysler one, the single cylinder brake, and put it in here when I fix this clutch, and use that instead of that aftermarket thing I've got. That may help me not have a problem with that in the future, I believe. Can't say for sure, but it's on my mind. So with that said, put all my tools away, and then I'm going to get out all my brake parts and go up there and start on the front right wheel, because that was the one that was always locked up first. And we're going to start the process of converting the wheels over to disc. I don't know if you can see what I'm doing from that angle, but I'm trying to get that loose without breaking it. Now, I need to think about which way turns loosens. Anytime you're working upside down, it's a good idea to turn your head upside down when you're thinking about this, because if you're tightening it instead of loosening it, you're defeating the purpose of yourself. So, loosening it should be turning it that way, which is counterclockwise. Is that right? Yep, that's counterclockwise. So that should be what do here. Now the line moved, but this part moved too. One of the things you kind of want to do is have it not twist the line when it comes, when it moves. A lot of times working with these old brake lines just takes a little patience, or a lot of patience, maybe. It doesn't hurt to have any patience anytime you're working on a little car. A little bit of patience can go a long way and save you a lot of trouble in the long run. See, that moved a little. What I'm going to do is kind of work it back and forth a little. Keeping in mind that I'm not in a hurry. Spend about as much time as we need to spend with this to get it right. Okay, I've got these loose. So now I can take this loose. So this is loose here. So I'm just going to gently, and of course I'm going to lose a little brake fluid, but we don't care. We're going to be re-plumbing the whole car. Not re-plumbing it, but replacing the fluid pretty much. So this comes loose just fine. We just leave that hang. This here piece is a slide out piece that just comes right off like somewhat like this. Let's pull it out. Should come right off. Might need some vice grips or something to get a hold to that good. That little piece does slide out of there. Sometimes you can take a screwdriver and get behind it and wiggle it out. Right there. Now this here will come out. So I got two lists instead of one. And one says 72 Charger calipers and pads. The other one says 76 Monte Carlo calipers, pads, brake hoses, and banjo bolts. And I don't know if this is a Charger or a Monte Carlo, but I don't have pads for it. But I think if I take it to the parts store, they can match it up. And I do want to make sure that these are going to fit. So I'll do that, and then I'll run to the store and I'll get the pads for it and make sure they're good. Once we're sure of that, we can install all of this, and then do the other side. Okay, so I found the receipt, and those calipers on the receipt are actually listed as 72 Dodge Challenger, even though my paper says Charger. I think they're probably the same thing. It says right there Dodge Challenger brake caliper. I didn't get pads with it though, so I'm going to need to run over and get some of those. Okay, this side is not finalized, but I've got everything in place enough to know that I've got everything except the pads, and I've ordered them from Parts Geek. They should be here in a few days. And the master cylinder stuff that I was talking about earlier, that's on the way. So I'm going to start taking the other wheel off, and it'll be probably pretty easy to go as far as I can go with this tomorrow. And then we'll mess with something else. Okay, so I was all done for the day, but I thought, well, I'll just come over here and just see how difficult it is to get this side done. Well, it didn't take hardly any time at all. This brake line is stripped, and probably doesn't matter
It probably needs to be replaced anyway. And this is pretty simple. This line runs into a T-junction right back here. The line on the other end of it goes to the back of the car, and then there's a line that goes right up to here. And so what I'll do is, if I can get that loose, well, I'm going to need one line to go to the back. So what I may do is, if I can get that loose down there, just plug that off, run my new line down there, put a T on it, and run one side to this side and one side to the other side. That'd be pretty quick and easy. And yeah, so yeah. Then we'll leave that other side. I'll rebend this piece here around and let it run to the back, maybe, or something like that. Anyway, I'm gonna knock off and get cleaned up for today. It's been a pretty good day of doing this stuff, and I kind of enjoy it. I like doing work like this when I'm not in a rush and I don't have to hurry or anything. So, you know, it's kind of fun. And it's kind of what working on old cars is all about in a way. It's just having fun with them, and it's a lot of fun when you're kind of got the time to enjoy it. I'm waiting for parts, so a lot of things I can't do, but a lot of things I can do in the meantime too. So we'll see how that goes. Another thing I need to do, this brake line is still hanging here and it's stripped, and I'll need to get it disconnected so that this thing can slip out of here, and I can cut it. I don't think that line is worth trying to save, but I do want to save the pattern of the line. So the other end of that line runs over into here, and you can probably just about see the little block right here. This is the line that runs down from the master cylinder. This is going to be the new rear brake line, and I need to get this disconnected here and then put a plug in that, and then when I run my new front brake lines, they'll be run down here on a separate line that'll have a T on it. So maybe I can explore what it's going to take to get that loose right there. I don't know if it's probably not going to be possible to work from under the car. Probably have to reach down over the fender to do that. Well, anytime you're reaching down over a fender on a car like this, you don't want a big old Texas belt buckle scratching up that fender. So usually I'll either pull my shirt out over my belt buckle, or I'll throw a blanket on the fender. And in this case, I'm going to be, because I got the car kind of up in the air, I'm going to be standing on this little stooly thing right here. And my other option would be and could be to lower the car. I could do that too. Think about it. I know that I wouldn't lower it too far. Maybe I'll just get up on the stool. Good enough. Good enough, y'all. Okay, I'm going to give you a little visualization of what I'm doing, if I can, but I don't know if I can have a camera sit any place where you can see while I'm doing it. But the wrench on the right is a 9/16. It's around the T-block. The T-block also is mounted to the frame by a little tab. The tab isn't real sturdy, and so I don't want to be twisting it hard and allowing only the tab to support it. So I've got my 9/16 wrench on the T-block to hold it. The wrench on the left is a 3/8, and it's that open-end 6-point that I was telling you about, that tow wrecker told me about a long time ago. Special braking wrench, brake tool that I got from Sears/Craftsman, which I guess Sears ain't Craftsman, or Craftsman ain't Sears anymore. They're Stanley now, but I hope they keep having tools that'll be worth having. That's all I'm gonna say about that. I like this car that it has enough room to work on it. I mean, there's room to reach down by the manifolds and get to the spark plugs. I guess that's one of the things about a great big wide automobile.
Try this, and it may not. I might have to knock you all off of there, but we'll see. I'm doing this with one hand. I got one hand on one wrench, one on the other. So I can get my other hand in there, I believe. First of all, I'd like to say that it is a great joy to be working on something when you're not in a hurry and you're doing it out of love. If you're a real mechanic, and when I say real mechanic, you know, somebody that gets paid for a living, you're generally in a hurry. You generally don't necessarily love the automobile you're working on, and it's not nearly so much fun. But when you love the vehicle you're working on and you're not in a rush, you have the time to not get upset by little things and figure out ways to fix things. Here's an example, and I've done this sort of thing before. I flattened out the end of this round pipe because I can't get enough leverage on that wrench right there. But with the end of this flattened out, I can slip this right over that and work it down in there. And then take my other hand and make sure I got a good, you know, I want to make sure this is all the way onto that. And now I have a goodly bit of leverage that I can put on this with this handle. So I'll take my other hand, and I do want to make sure that this is on there good, and I think what I'll do is I'll tap that a little bit, because you don't want to strip fitting. So now I'm going to hold this so that this doesn't turn too much, and I'm going to give this a good tug. And you hear a click, it means she popped loose. Just like that. That is what you call success, my friends. Okay, she's loose. You know, after going in here and looking a little deeper, I decided to go ahead and swap out the shocks. I have a new set of shocks to go on this car. They unbolt from here, which is kind of directly behind where that new backing plate would be. I thought, well, that's pretty easy to change them now, easier than it will be later. The top bolt's always a little hard to get out because these things don't tend to want to unscrew very easily. Sometimes you can put an air wrench on and spin them off. I might try that. Otherwise, I might wind up cutting it. But this bolt down here is already loose. I'll try an air wrench on that one, and we'll see what that gets us. Well, it didn't spin off, and I tried to turn in it, and holding the top of the shock, there's a little flattened area on top that sometimes you can hold it and get that to come loose. That didn't work either, so I'm just going to cut it off. I can get to it pretty well with the grinder here, so I'm going to give it the treatment. Well, let's see how close we are to over there. Well, that old one wasn't in too bad a shape, actually, or at least it doesn't look like it. Of course, it also looks like it might have been repainted or something, so I don't know. Pretty easy to put a new one on there. Makes it all good and beautiful, just saying. Now up here on top, all we're going to do is this washer has a section that's, oh, it's a little bit elongated. You see that? Oh, there's a hole in the top of the tower here, so that elongated hole goes down. So that goes into that. This washer, especially made for shock absorbers, goes on top of that. This goes on top of that. And then you just spin that down and tighten it appropriately. And you're good to go. It doesn't require an enormous amount of tightening. And that is 9/16. I think I got one right here. I can use my brake wrench for that. I will snug it up. I feel like I could go quicker if I used the socket. As I'm doing this, I'm flattening out that big rubber washer. There's a big rubber washer underneath on that tower also. Basically what I'm doing is just kind of flattening the two washers a little bit together so that they kind of, the shock won't be bouncing up and down. On top of them, using this little short wrench, I can't get a whole lot of pressure on there. And I don't really need a whole lot of pressure on there, just enough to make it nice and snuggly. So, that shock is done. And I might progress over to the other side and do it also. 45 degrees when I got up this morning. Pretty chilly. It's still August. That's the way it is in Maine though. Sunshine feels pretty good. I'm thinking I will go ahead and let me raise up the garage door. I have all of the pieces in place pretty much. To install the disc brake setup on the front of the Dodge Chrysler here. These are on here now, but there's not any grease in them, and the bolts aren't tightened up, and the seals aren't on here. I don't have my pads yet, and I don't have my booster and master cylinder, but I got a note that it may be delivered today. So I think what I'm going to do this morning, we're leaving to go camping later today. Go down to the fairground with the grandkids and the cow and such. But I think what I might do is go ahead and bolt everything in place as far as the disc goes here. And I was thinking, well, maybe it'd be a good time to take some Pour 15 and just paint the area here on the firewall, and I could actually get a little bit of red paint and brush on. You can see where somebody painted this car red and it used to be white and all the white showing. Maybe if I got enough time I could wire brush that and put a little Pour 15 on there and then paint it. I may have to weld up some holes down here. I think there's some holes that somebody cut in the firewall, because I got a feeling the master cylinder is going to wind up mounting right in this area, and all this down here is just going to be left wide open. So I'll need to address that. So anyway, I don't know if I'll get all that done today or not. I'm pretty sure I get these brakes in place. The other thing we've been thinking about, or I've been thinking about, is winterizing, getting ready for winter. I went ahead and got the Jeep gassed up. It wasn't running real well, and I found the air line, a gas line leak where it was sucking air, so I fixed that. I got the plow on it, and I'm going to park it over there and put the battery tender on it. We are going to be leaving and coming back in November. We might need to push some snow when we come back, so I'm going to have that ready. I guess if I can get, I guess I don't care what I get done today. Whatever I get done is going to be fun. So I'm looking forward to it. We'll leave it at that. I think what I'm going to do is just use these plastic bags Usually I get that grease all over my hands and stuff. It's not a bad thing. It sure is dirty though. But what I could do instead is put my hand in the bag, grab the grease out with that hand like this. I'm still going to get some on me, but it's not going to be horrible. What you used to do is put this grease in the palm of your hand and you kind of work it in like by moving this bearing backwards through it. It's like you're pushing it in with the palm of your hand. I'm still doing that, but I'm trying to keep my hand in this little baggie here. I don't get more grease on me than I do on this thing. And really all you want to do is just grease it up good. Make sure you got plenty on there and in there. You want it to slide down underneath those little bearing rollers and things. Once you feel pretty good about having it on there, you can just drop it right down in that wheel. It fits in there just like that. Get a rag and wipe off the excess and then I'll show that to you. So there's the back bearing all greased up. I'll take this seal and the seal goes with the rubber side out. And I usually just tap it in place with a little hammer. This one has a little rubber hickey on one side, and this side here is the side that goes in. So that really just sits right there. And what I'll do is I'll take a hammer and I'll just get a screwdriver and I'll gently tap that right around the edges. I don't know if I can sit you where you can kind of see that or not. Put it here. I don't want to use a real hard, sharp object to do that with. You can also do it with the side of a wrench or something, because basically all you want to do is put something over there that you can tap with. Tap it a little too hard, it pops out. I suppose if I had a pipe, I'd fit over that so it was about the right size. And I could tap the pipe too. That would work. One of my neighbors got a new boat. He looked happy going to the lake with it, or the ocean, or wherever he's going. Thought that pipe might work to tap that with. That would be enough. I need something better to tap with. Sometimes I'll stick my finger right in that grease. Okay. Thought I almost had it just about in there, right? And it popped right out. I do that sometimes. That seems to be in there pretty good. Now I can set this wheel right up on here, and then I can pack grease in the outside one. I'm going to do the same thing with it I did with that other. I'm just getting some of this grease rubbed right down in all the little cracks and joints all around that bearing there. Once that grease is on there good, I'm just going to slide this right over into there. That turns on that. I keep my hands about halfway clean. You get this stuff all over you, and then you get it all over everything you touch. That gets to be ugly. Okay, now the next thing that goes on here is there's a little washer with a notch in it. They don't send a new washer with the kit, but They do tell you to use the old one. Basically, this is the old one right here. And of course, it's covered in grease because it was stuck on the end of that bearing. And that's okay. See the notch right there and the notch where my finger is? That notch is going to go on that notch. This is going to slide up on there, and then when the nut goes on there, it will push that up into place. I'm going to wipe that little bit of grease off my fingers. I'm going to put the cap back on this grease here. They did send me some new bolts, which is nice. Wasn't necessary, the old bolts would have worked fine, but yeah, we'll put them on there. And I put a new pin in the end of that. Basically, the way these work is you pretty much just tighten them on there till they're snug, and then you kind of sometimes back them off just a hair. And you want it so tight it puts friction on that wheel. You want the wheel to turn freely, but you want it to be on there good and snug. I'm looking for my little, here it is, I can find that, looking for my little wrench for that. Now see, that's tight, and you notice the wheel won't turn. I'm going to back it off a little, make sure that the wheel will turn. You want it to turn freely without being completely loose. So it'll turn a lot more freely when you get a wheel. See, this pin goes through, and you just pull the end up. Usually what I'll do is pull one up one way, the other way. That way that pin won't drop down and bump into anything. And you're going to have a little cap cover that's going to go over the end of that. It ain't a real snug fit there. I guess maybe it is once you tap it on. So. Okay. Next thing is going to be the caliper and the pads. Now this is red Loctite. It says thread locker red. And I've got a spindle adapter that will go on here and will allow the new hub to fit on here. This spindle would have been a little different size than the replacement spindle, and the replacement spindle is from a, I believe it was a 76. What was it from? From a, no, let's see. The rotors was from a 76 Dodge Dart. So by putting the spindle on here, that just makes this a little bit bigger, places it a little bit differently so that that new bearing will ride on that. So I said to coat that with that red Loctite, which I'm about to do. It's basically what you don't want to have happening is you don't want this thing to spin. Which it shouldn't do as long as the bearings are good, but if you ever had a bearing that started to go bad, you would kind of want the bearing to self-destruct rather than spinning this, which could do more harm to the to this and to the spindle. I'm going to set that right up on that fender so I won't forget or lose it or anything. Just turn that into place, that way it spreads that stuff around in there real good, and then just press it on. Next thing is going to be the bearing and seal. Got a new bearing and seal right here, and a seal. I'm going to need my rub and drum, which are all in one piece. getting heavy. It's all new stuff, and it will eliminate that problem I had. This is the new drum here. It will eliminate the problem that I had. Remember when we had left-handed threaded bolts on this front end? Well, this has its own bolts and things, so that's going to eliminate that altogether. So, the big one will go on the inside, small one on the outside. I do believe. Let's see if that looks right. See how nicely that fits on there? Y'all see that? So that's the adapter, that's the new bearing. That's going to be the seal. It's going to go back in the back of this hub. And this is going to be the outside bearing. I'll go ahead and pull it out to give you an idea of how that works. See, this will be the outside bearing, and it goes like this. And your hub will ride on these two bearings. And of course you fill these full of grease. I want to get a flashlight. I want to get that flashlight back because I don't think y'all can see. I don't think there's enough light here. Maybe that helps a little. I don't know. So the hub rides between the front and the rear bearing. You pack those with grease. Here's the hub here. I'll put you back on the stand. We'll pull the hub out. Have a quick look at it, and then I'm going to pack those bearings with grease and put them in place. I've been calling this a hub. You could call it a disc. In this case, the hub and the disc are all made together. On some, you see some where the disc and the hub are not made together. They're separate. I'm glad these aren't. I just think it's much more simpler, I guess. I doubt if I'll ever have to replace this, but I don't think I'll live long enough to wear these parts out. See, these already have the races in place. Now the races, just like these bearings ride on this shaft, the races are pieces of metal that these ride on inside the hub. I take this here. See, this little piece of metal inside of here is the race. And you'll see a little shiny ring down there on the other side. Well, that's the race for that little one. If you notice, it's like a little piece of metal that's pressed down in there, and it's shaped so that the angle of it matches the angle of that. It may be more information than you ever needed to know, but if you're someone that had never worked on these or on bearings and stuff in general, that's all good information to know. So that's the race, this is the bearing. This seal, there'll be an outside seal which is like a cap that goes on that once you get a nut and a pin in that, and the inside seal will go here. And that just holds all the grease from coming out and slinging out all over the thing there. Now get me some grease. I'm going to pack those. I'm going to actually put them in here and then slide that onto there. So I'll do that now. So I was thinking I was about ready to run off the store to get me some fittings, but I've got all the fittings I need. These should screw right into the brake. What am I trying to say? Should fit right into the master cylinder, and these two little ones fit into the ends of the brake lines here, like this. And then I've got this one, which is the plug, which I was talking about needing to plug that back line off. Now this plug's a little bigger than that one, so I'm going to double check that. Make sure that that plug fits into that back line. In fact, I may go ahead and disconnect that back line and have a look at that. So, that'll be next, I guess. So I was going to take the back brake line off of that T-block, and I kind of got to looking at it and thinking about it, and I thought, you know, I'd rather, if I'm going to replace one, I think I'd rather replace the front one
because the front brakes are really the most important brakes you got on your car. Most of your stopping power is going to come from the front, especially on a car that's got disc brakes on it. So I took that front brake line off, and I kind of had a look at it, and it's not too fabulous. I guess you can see that. Somewhat pitted and all. In fact, it looks like the right there where it's pieced together, the piece on the left looks newer than the piece on the right. So anyway, I'm gonna just get me some of that. They make this new brake line. I've never used it. It's is it copper nickel or something? I don't even know. I'm pretty sure most of y'all are more familiar with it than I am. I'm gonna run over the store and get me some of that, and I got a lot of fittings on here. I think I can reuse with that. So I should take care of that. So that's a pretty good bit of work to do for today. I'm gonna go see what time it is too, because I want time to knock off and get cleaned up before we go to the fair. So I'm gonna go take a look at the time, and then we'll see what we're doing after that. I went ahead and cut the top off that shock absorber. My wrench wasn't doing anything to get that bolt loose. It was stuck just like the other side. And I'm gonna start this morning over on the other side, but I just thought it'd be handy dandy to go ahead and get that loose. And then when I come back over here, I've got to take off the hub and everything here. So when I do that, I'll go ahead and swap the shock out. I'm going to start this one on the other side, and I've got all my parts and pieces. I'm not waiting on any more stuff, so I can literally start assembling the brakes. And I'm going to start at the wheel. And work I pretty much showed this on the other side, but I'll just give you the shortened version over here. Basically, I've cleaned my spindle off. I have my old steering rod. It comes up under the back of here. This bolt and this bolt hold the old steering rod in place. This bolt and this bolt hold the new backing plate for the caliper in place. And I'm going to go ahead and tighten these bolts down, and then I'll put I've got a shim adapter that goes on here, so that the new bearings will fit this old spindle. And I'll put it on with some red Loctite, and then I'll grease my bearings and put my new spindle on here with the new bearings, grease them all up, adjust the nut and put the pin in it and the cap, and then I can attach the calipers here, and the rotors will go inside the calipers. By the way, these are self-locking nuts. They're the nylon self-locking. They don't require, doesn't require lock washers. These were included. These and the bolts were included in the kit. I think one of these bolts is a little longer. I think I was supposed to have gotten either one more shorter bolt and one less longer bolt, but it will still work as long as that tightens up and holds that. Before I run out of threads, that should be fine. And what I'll do is I'll snug that one up first, just to make sure it's going to be good on it. That's going to be a 5/8. Front one is also a 5/8. Go ahead and snug that down. in place with the caliper, the pad, new bearings, new shock absorber, new line. So I'm going to go to the other side. It's roughly in place. I just got to pull it all apart and put that Loctite on my little adapter that's on my spindle, and then pack the bearings with grease and put the nut on, tighten it up, put the pin in it, put the cap on it, put the caliper and the brake in place, and put the brake line on that one. And first thing I'm going to do is, I've already ground the bolt off the top of that shock over there, so should be able just to pop loose. That's a 5/8 and 11/16 bolt that's under there. Should be able to pop that loose, get that old shock out, get the new shock in, and then put all that new stuff in place, in order, have it good, and then I can start working on my brake cylinder, master cylinder, and booster and everything. So I think what I'm going to do is leave my tools right where they're laying and just pick them up and move them over there as I need them. That way I don't have a bunch of clutter in the floor while I'm trying to work. And the first thing I know I'm going to need is that wrench with an 11/16 heavy duty socket and my little 5/8 box end wrench. So I'll grab those two things. These is the same drill as on the other side. The big fat washer goes with the cup facing up. The big rubber washer goes in there, and it has a little flat side and a little side that protrudes. I believe the correct word would be that side is proud, but I don't know if I'm using that correctly. But the flat side goes down, the proud side goes up. Like I said, sometimes you have to mash this a little bit to get it up in there. I don't know if I'll have to this time. Could try setting a flashlight there, but I don't really know if it's helping any or not. And this end is going to go up in the tube. And this lower end is sometimes a little hard to get up in there. Takes a little jiggling around sometimes. I don't know if it'll work better from the back side or not. Try that. Shock absorber is in place, and I'm going to just tighten this one up here. I like what we did the other day. Just make it snuggly.
Thing I'm going to do is install the calipers in the pad. Here's the caliper, here's the pads, and these are called banjo bolts, believe it or not, and they screw in from the back into here, and this shaft goes through here, the big end on that side, the little end on this side, and the two pads fit inside of that. This other one, just make sure it's all threaded good and it fits good. So, I'll take that out, I'll take that out. Just stick these calipers into place, and they basically sit right in here. You got one that sits on one side, with the fiber side goes in, the metal side goes toward the outside, and your rotor disc. I'll put that one upside down. Your rotor disc is going to sit like that. It slides on and over. Wow, look at this. So basically that's kind of what they look like once you've reached that far. You can try to get these into place. That will fall out. And that happens a lot sometimes. That's lovely. Back in there, you little rascal. Once I get a pin in there, it'll hold it. The pin goes through that hole. There it is. Now I gotta get this brake shoe thing, caliper pad there like that. This side over here go like that, and that comes out. I'll take my finger out of there and show you what I just did. Okay, so the bolt goes in through the back of the caliper. Maybe you can see it from there, and then it's got a threaded part that's gonna go through this backing plate. It goes through, there's the one side of the pad, here's the other side of the pad, goes through that, and it comes out the front right there. We've got another bolt that's going to go in the bottom side. With almost as much ease as I did that one. A bit easier actually, once the first one's in place. Sometimes you have to kind of bang these a little bit to get them started. I believe those are 1/2 inch. This is a 9/16. That's too big, so let me get me a little 1/2 inch socket and I'll be right back. There's a certain way that hose needs to go on there, and hard to describe. When I have to get out, I'll try to show it to you on the other hose before we put it on. But that's good in a way, because I was wondering which way that hose went, you know, which side flipped, which side faced the caliper and which side faced the bolt. Once I get out, once I get this tightened up and I get out from here, we'll look more at that, and we'll look at the other end of this line and what that goes to, because that's going to go to one of the metal lines, which I'm going to be spending some time with later on too. That would be really sweet if I was able to actually drive the car today, but I don't know if I can get all this done today. I've got that whole brake booster, master cylinder set up to figure out. Now, I did some looking at it, and it looks like I'm going to have to drill some holes in the firewall to get it to fit. And I'm going to have to I'm going to have to make the lines, which is good. I haven't made any lines in a while. I made up the lines for that rat rod back in the day, and might have done a few others along the way, but I'll get a chance to make some lines up and show you how that works. And I'm also going to be using that copper nickel, which they say is a lot easier to work with than the steel lines that I've worked with in the past. And we'll review how to do a double furl, and I'll explain what a furl is, which you're supposed to have on brake lines. Yeah, this car looks pretty good underneath. Rust-wise, I was expecting worse than what I'm seeing. It's kind of good. Kind of good. It might be metric there, so I'm gonna leave that for now. And all right, I'll get out from under here and see if y'all are still on and still working, and we'll go from there. We're laying in the dirty spot here. Y'all still working? Yeah, you are. Okay, so the other end of this line goes to right there. And that is where the metal line, there's a little holder here, and this little tab, I haven't slid it all the way in place yet. That's why. There's a little bracket here, and this little tab slips in there and holds that in place. And then the metal line, and I got a piece I think here, and I can show you. This is kind of what the metal line is going to look like, and that metal line will go up into that, sort of like that, and that's the part I have to make. So I'm going to twist this around and get it at a good angle. I think it's probably supposed to be just an angle where it won't be touching, the best angle to get it at where it won't be touching anything too much. And then I'll slip this little gizmo right here, just slips over into there once I get it in the right place, and that holds. Yeah, I got that line into place. This grease got on it from that, they put new front ball joints on this and packed them with grease, and the grease is running out. That's what you see on that line there. Won't hurt it none. And there's a view from the back side of that. Once it goes through, you can see the tip of it start to come through here once it starts catching the threads.
So you have to give it a little bump to get it up in there.
The next thing to do is go ahead and install the brake line, and it's going to have a couple of special bolts and some little washers that go with it. And these bolts and washers and things, they're important. You need them. You don't need to, they won't work any other way. This is a bolt that has a hole in it that lets the brake fluid pass from the caliper into the line. Looks like we got two little washers with each line, so I'm just one on the inside and one on the outside with those bolts. That's fine with me. So, I'm going to want to get down on my knees and get my hand up under there to see how to get that loose on here. I might wind up setting y'all up in here. I don't know if that'll help you see any better or not. First thing I'm going to have to do is pull out the little rubber cap. Probably should have done that while I had it out. Oh well. That wasn't too bad. And now I need to figure out, one end of this line, by the way, is going to fit up into the brake, little brake tube over here. I'm going to go ahead and pop that loose and put it in place. That might make it easier to, let me get my special tool. Got her back down on the ground, so the next thing I'm going to do is begin the process of installing that piece. And I was looking at that this morning. Let me see where I put the parts, and I'll show you what I'm going to do. So this is actually cool as grits right here. So I'm going to show you what we got. And with the, I bought basically I went on eBay and I bought a setup to put a new booster and a new dual brake cylinder on a 61 Chrysler Newport. Now they sent me a lot of pieces and parts, and there's a lot of options as to how to fit everything together. But the way this works is, like, I'm going to kind of get everything into place here. Okay, this is backwards, so let's just say this is your brake pedal. So this goes through the firewall, and when you mash your brake pedal, let me get this right. Okay, now it's right. So you've got this thing that comes out of the back of your booster, and it comes in here and it's threaded. This threaded piece goes into the back of that thing. So let's just imagine that thing is sitting about right here where the tip of my finger is. So this little piece comes up and it attaches to that. This piece back here where my thumb is, that attaches. I'm hoping you can see this. I got y'all sitting up on the breather. This piece back here is the pedal. So when you mash a pedal, it does that. And that matches that thing, which matches that booster thing, which also matches the brake cylinder. Now these 4 bolts here match this plate here. And also there's a little attachment. So this goes through that and there's a little rubber hickey that goes through that to insulate it. So this plate is basically what I need to attach to the firewall, and this plate doesn't fit any of the holes that are here. If I look at that firewall, the only thing that comes close to fitting is, and you notice there's a big hole on top and a little hole on the bottom, is right there, those two holes. So if you put that right there, that would match. The problem with that is that these two holes on the inside don't even go all the way through. So I might take a drill and drill out those holes. The brake rod is right in here. In fact, maybe if I turn it like this and you look in there, maybe you can see the pin. So you can see that that just about lines everything up. So what's going to happen is that is going to mount here, and then the booster is going to come up here and sit on the other part, and that little wiggle arm is going to work the booster so that your brakes and stuff sit out in here. Now this thing has hole here, hole, 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 hole. These two holes down here I think somebody drilled, and I think somebody cut this all up in here. So this has been a lot of monkeying around with this firewall, and I don't even know, this is the handle off of a water valve or something, and I don't even know what this is all about. It's like, really? And I peeled this back to see if there were any holes here, and no, there's not. And even if there was, if that thing was mounted here, then it'd put your brake way up here unless you reversed it, and I suppose that would be maybe possible. I don't know, maybe not, I don't know. But anyway, the only place it makes sense for me to have that is here. So what I'm going to do first of all is drill these two holes out, and then once I get that set, I'll mount this plate on that spot, and I'll hook this to that pedal, and then we'll kind of look at the length of travel on the pedal and see if it makes sense. Now I've got some additional linkages, so if that doesn't work, there are 2 or 3 different pedal linkages in with this whole kit I bought. So we'll look at the whole. I went inside and I had a half a piece of cheese toast and a whole glass of iced tea, and I thought it over for a minute or two, and I decided that before I drill any holes, I should put this all into place and give it a little test fit, just to make sure it's going to work the way I want it to work. And because I've got to do some refashioning on this firewall here, and I think it'd be a really good time to, you know, scrub that a little bit, put some WD-40 on there, put some 415 on there, you know, do a little rust proofing, maybe do a little paint, just clean up that area, because once that's on there, it's going to be in the way of everything. And I believe I could put that all together just to make sure the pedals lined up and everything's working the way it's supposed to, and then take it back off, and then do what I need to do to work on that firewall, and then put it back. So I'm gonna do a little bit of that while we're thinking. There's kind of a trick I've used before. I'm gonna try it again. I got a situation where I need to put a bolt through the firewall, and I need to tighten it from the inside, but I can't be on the inside and the outside at the same time. Now this hole is just about as big as this bolt, and if I were to take my grinder and cut a notch in the end of this hole, I could turn that into a self-tapping screw and then thread that right into that wall, and then I could come in from the other side and screw that out, and then hang this apparatus on it, and then put some screws on it and tighten it up. That way I wouldn't have to hold it, it would hold itself. I've done this kind of thing before. Basically what I do is I just take my screw, and I can put the screw in this vise. I can take my little sharp edge grinder, cut a notch in the end of it. I might cut one in each side. I can do the same thing with this one. I get my sharp little grinder, I'll show you what I'm talking about. All I want to do is notch this. Do the same thing on the other side. I should be able to take that and force it to screw itself into that wall. Get a socket that fits it. I need more hands than what I have. I might could do this with an air wrench. It might make it possible for me to do that. That'd give me a little bit better control of trying to hold the wrench and all. Let's try that. Okay. So if that's not going to work, then I'll get me a tap and die set and I'll make a hole in it. I'll still make it. Okay, I got it started. It was more difficult than I thought it was going to be, but still started. Okay, I got one started. Now, let's try another one. Next thing I'm going to do is put my calipers on, and just like that other side, here's the caliper. The fat side goes to the back. These are what's called banjo bolts. I don't know why they're called banjo bolts, but they are. These go with the metal side, facing one side toward the caliper and the other side toward the caliper, and the part that's all grainy looking, that's your fiber, and that's the part that goes toward the disc. That's the part that wears out. If you hear metal grinding, that's a pretty good sign that you wore out your fiber stuff, and you need to replace these before you start wearing out that metal, because after that metal there's nothing left to wear out except that caliper, and you're not going to have brakes for very much longer. Just saying. New calipers, new pads, new brake lines. So next thing to do is to transition over to installing the new master cylinder and brake booster and brake pedal connection. And I've already done some looking, and I'm going to have to drill some additional holes. I need to drill a hole here and on the other side. And the other thing I'm going to want to do is patch up
whatever part of this is still open when I finish with that. So I'm gonna have some work to do there, but the first thing I might do is put the wheels on here and let the car down. That way I'm not climbing up over that fender with this thing sitting up on the lift while I'm doing that work. Because the only thing I'm gonna need to get to under here is those brake lines, ends, and what I might do is pick it back up and like put the wheels on here and put 2 screws in there and drop it down. And then after I've done this work, pick it back up and pop these wheels off and run that brake line. Let's do that. Thought I was recording when I wasn't, so let me go back around here. I put the longer pedal on there and it made this so that this pedal has enough travel now. See, that's where it's at when it's all the way out. So it has enough travel now to have plenty of room. And then I came out here and I put the booster on. I thought I was filming that too, but I wasn't. So that booster is just, see, this is, when this is all the way back, this pedal, it's almost up against the firewall. And the point in the back of the booster, see this screwdriver, this little thing that's sitting down here. It's not connected right now. So I got plenty of room between here and the whole air conditioner place over there. And that looks like a perfect alignment for that. Brake pedal. This part has a little adjuster on it, and I've got some adjustment on that brake pedal. And my my cylinder is going to be a regular GM type cylinder. It's going to sit out here about this far. So it'll be sitting right in here. These hoses are kind of going to be in the way a little bit, but they're air conditioner hoses. Are not hooked to anything. I could do away with them. And however, I was contemplating the other day the possibility of attaching air conditioning to this car. Looking online at some air conditioning motor options and things like that. So I might not do anything. I might leave all that in place because it looks like all these hoses are pretty close to where they would need to be for everything to work. I don't know where this thing went to, but it looks like that's part of the air conditioner cooling system. Anyway, okay, I think on this note I'm gonna knock off and get cleaned up. I need to go with Honey Baby. She's over at the fair, and I'm sore. I've been twisting around and got myself sore from doing what I've been doing today. So it's a good time to knock off, clean up, give this some thought. I still got some holes to fix and some other things to take care of down here. But I've got this far enough along where I feel like that I can get these brakes working with another good day of work here. So yeah, we're gonna be good with all that. I'm gonna set it here and then I'm gonna go move that pedal because I want to see when I move that pedal back. I want to see if it goes back against the firewall. This is with the pedal all the way forward. I did that because I needed to see it, because in my mind it doesn't make sense that when the pedal is all the way back, that will also be all the way back. And when you push the pedal, this moves forward. But I think it's hard to translate the movement and the shape of that rod, you know, in my brain, if that makes any sense. But it does work. It's like, I'm trying to think what it's like. It's like this moves, this doesn't move that. This moves another bar here that's hinged and moves that. So when the pedal pushes, this moves forward here. I know that may seem complicated to you, and it was to me too. That's why I wanted to do that. So I feel satisfied that if I come back tomorrow and fix this firewall, and I can see a lot of this. I mean, think about it. If I left this like this, this is what you'd be looking at. Why is this even here? I don't even know. But if I fix this, maybe even put another piece of metal over this. This is where the original old booster used to be. I've read somewhere about when people do these changeovers is something about the old booster that used to hang out over the brake. I think the booster hung out here and the brake was under it. And I've heard people talk about that. They have to get a special master cylinder lid to fit up under that. I guess that makes sense. Sorta. Anyway, I do want to consider that and consider how to make it better. Okay. Okay, so I got them both in there and threaded. So what I'm going to do now is try to go inside and thread them out so that I can slip these pieces onto there and then put a nut on there and tighten that nut down, which will allow me to then just have a look at it. And I haven't done any real damage to the firewall other than threading those holes. That don't really hurt a thing. So, well, we'll go from there. It's slow, but we're getting there. Wow, that was really very hard. However, now that it's there, I can connect the pedal inside here. See, this is the side that will go out to the booster. I guess I could also put my booster up here to make sure it's going to clear this stuff over here too. Let's go inside and look at the pedal. I've been laying on, I drug out a bunch of blankets to lay on because that was killing me. I don't have a bad back or anything, but a man can only pretzel himself around so much. No matter how good a shape I'm in. By the way, while I was working here, I noticed there's another wasp nest right there. I think they've moved on though. Oh, they have not. Look, they're actually living on that thing, and I've been laying here with my back up against that all this time. Wow. Wow. Okay, I attached that to the pedal, and I don't feel like it has a long enough throw. What I mean by that is that with the pedal all the way back, this is literally against the firewall, but the pedal only is about 4 or 5 inches from the floor. What I need is a longer arm down there, and that's this arm with the pin in it, which I think I can pop that pin and pull that out. And I've got some more arms over here, and basically all I need is a longer one. I've got some longer arms somewhere. This is out here. While I try removing this pin, let's see what else I got. I may just scoot this out away from the firewall to change that. That's the nice thing about having it set up this way, see, is that it's not that hard to pull this on and off. And I don't need somebody under the dash to hold the other end of those screws for me. And what I need is for this arm right here to be longer. So let me see what I got. I got a box of, I got some goodies that came with that. This one is longer. So let's try swapping this one out. The other thing I can do if I need to, I've made, cut and welded and put together rods for cars before. When I did the Rambler that Josh has got now, I had to remake the rod on it, the brake rod. It's always kind of a process when you do one of these jobs. But it certainly is well worth it. It isn't going to give me a whole lot more, but it may be that it will give me enough. And if not, we will cut and weld and make something that does work. Another thing too, well, I'm thinking about this because see, when you mash this, that moves that forward. So I started to say I could adjust it out here, but I don't think so, because if that was right up against the firewall and then moving it forward, unless, I don't know how far it needs to come out to touch that. I suppose that might be another thing, is I might have enough play. It might not, well, see, if it came out though, that would make it deeper than it is. It needs more travel room, I believe. I think I'm on the right track here. I'll know soon enough. So I mentioned the other day that I got my vise set up over there, and I do a lot of grinding over there, and of course all that grinding dust winds up getting all over everything over there. And then I should set up something outside. I've got this little gizmo right here that came with something, I don't know. But it's not real stable, if you see what I mean. It don't take much to woggle that thing over. I've also got this Chrysler front wheel that pipe fits right into, and it is pretty stable. I was thinking I might just that pipe don't fit into the end of this pipe, otherwise I just weld that down there and shove that pipe into it. What I might do is cut this down a little lower and just weld me a plate on top of it like that, and then do my grinding on that. I could you know, vice grip whatever I'm working on to that, or I could connect that to a vise if I wanted to do that. I got one out in the barn that ain't hooked to nothing. So I'm thinking about, here's a little product update. I flipped that piece over that was down in here, and there's a bolt that's attached, it's not welded, and I believe that and this are the same size on the outside. They're skinnier on the inside so that this one on the bottom won't fit over that wheel, but if the outside diameter is the same, so well, that didn't quite fit into that, but it looks like there's enough looseness in this one. I'm going to take that bolt out, see if it fits into that. If it does, I'll just weld that to that and chop it a little shorter and put that on it. That's what I'm thinking. Right then, that should do for what I want to do, because yeah, that should do fine, and I can roll that around the corner and get it out of the way, and I can bring it out here when I want to do some cutting and stuff. A while back I moved my welder back there, and I was thinking at the time I'd probably want it out here, and this is a good example of that. You can see how my cord stretches so far. That's as far as my ground cord will reach, literally from there. Whereas if it's out here, it could reach way out yonder somewhere. So what I'll do once I finish this job is I'll move this table and I'll set that welder and all back over here again. Just because it's easier to work with near the door. But I needed the space here to work around the front end to get these wheels done. So I'm glad I moved it, but I'll also be moving it back. So that's all I was trying to say with that. Okay, I think that's pretty close to what I was shooting for. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little 415 all around and underneath that, and I'm going to get me some of that sticky goop like this. I think they call it dum dum, and I'm going to put all around it. I'm going to be I still need to do the top holes for this piece here, and I may do those with set screws. And I also have another piece underneath here that needs to be filled in, and I'll be doing that one too. So what I'll do now is I'll take that off and paint behind it and underneath it and kind of off to the sides. See if I got any 415 that's not dried up. If I have, I'll use that. And then what I'll do is after that dries, I'll paint over that with some red paint. 415 is not supposed to be a top coat. It will fade if it's allowed to be in a place where sunlight can get to it. Some of y'all already knew that, some of you might not have. I've been spending a while fabricating and stuff. And I've got this patch made for up here and this one made for down there. Well, I got that on there a little crooked, but nobody's ever going to see it. And there's a rubber, I put this rubberized gook, what do they call it stuff? You know what I'm talking about. Dum-dum, I think they call it, behind this, so it's all sealed up airtight. When these final bolts all go in here, it's going to snug this up pretty good. I put some WD-40 on there, but my WD-40, the texture of it was all wrong. I don't know what happened to it, but it didn't seem to be going on right at all. So I'm going to repaint this in some red, just enough to hide this ugliness a little bit, and then we'll move on from there. Once I get that done, I can kind of put this all back into place and put it together the way it goes, and then we'll be kind of moving pretty quickly after that, I believe, toward having a breakable car. Alright, that's pretty ugly, but it's not as ugly as what was there before. And I'm going to call it good enough. I'll let that dry, and then I'll come back and we'll install the brakes and such. Morning. I think it was 58 when I came out, and the sun is shining beautifully. Honey Baby's coming back from the fair this morning, and I'm gonna do a little work on this firewall. I noticed this earlier, which is I don't know what that's all about, but it looks like there's a mount on the other side of the firewall that kind of holds the brake pedal and goes up around the steering column and all that. And at one time there was a bolt here, and I don't know what that attached to, but I'm going to unbolt this and see if I can just make a plate to cover that. I suspect that might have been where the original master cylinder used to go, but I can't guarantee that, but I think that's what that is. Anyway, I'm going to pull that off, pull this stuff off, take this off, clean this up, put some paint on it, make some patches to fit the holes. I got one here. Okay, that's what's under it. So, let's see what we can find to patch that with, or fix it with, or whatever. I'd like to have a piece of metal that comes up to here. I might bring it all the way up and put it behind these bolts. And then has this little turn. Wait a minute, is that what I want to do? But I'd like for it to come all the way down and cover that. Looking at this. If I put a reverse bend and turn this around the other way so that it came out and down, I could make that work. Is that what I want though? I could also put something right there and make a piece for that. That might make more sense. Might make more sense. Two bends in that if I go all the way down to the bottom. It ain't really necessary. Just for fun, I'm gonna go pump the brake pedal a time or two. See what it does. Alrighty, I'm ready for some brake lines now. Oh. I'm going to wire my proportioning valve to go on the back brake. So I'll go ahead and get started on that. Well, I just did something wrong that I do from time to time, and it's a good thing it happened now because it's a reminder to me not to make this mistake again. And basically I started flaring my flare here without putting my threaded piece on the end of that. So we get to do that over. Yeah, sure do. Okay, this time I'll remember to stick this on here first. Okay, this is sort of, but not exactly like your basic bench bleed setup works. I've got a line from the front and the rear brake, and I'm going to fill up the reservoir with brake fluid, and then I'm just going to take a screwdriver and stick it in here and pump that. What it's going to do is going to pump air down into the bottom of the reservoir, and I'm going to be basically getting the air out of this. So I'm going to fill this up with brake fluid, pump it with a screwdriver in the end of this until there's no more air coming out. It said to get this level. It's not exactly level because of the fitting on one side of that, but my thinking is that the high side, if it, basically they want it to be level so you won't trap any air in there, and if the high side is the side with the valves on it, that's more than likely where the air would go. So I'll see if I can find a place for y'all to sit, let you watch me do this. Right now when I'm doing this, I'm getting out bubbles. You see the bubbles? That's what I want to do. I'll do this till there's no more bubbles coming out of it. I think that's pretty good. Now I'm going to plug the end of these lines with some little plugs I got. Put the lid on here, take it over there, put it on the car. I will be putting brake lines on there, but I'll keep the ends of the lines plugged. In the meantime, just so that I don't lose any brake fluid. I don't have any plugging too well. I guess as long as these lines stay up higher than the cylinder, it'll be alright. It won't leak that way. I'll just hook this onto here. And we'll go put it on the car. Okay, the back brakes are hooked up and the front brakes are not yet, but we're getting there. I'm kind of curious if I could stop up this front one and pump the back brakes a few times, but I just want to do it to hear the shoes rattle back there. I don't really need to do it. So the next thing I'm going to need to do is figure out where the connectors are going to go. It's going to do both front wheels, and there's going to be a key in them. So I'm going to think about what I'm about to do here just a little bit before I do it. Okay, the brake lines are all hooked up. Now I need to tighten all the fittings and then we can bleed them. Okay, the booster is in place and all hooked up to the pedal. I didn't make a step-by-step bunch of videos while I was doing that because, to be honest with you, I kind of had my hands full just getting it all in there. You know, there's a lot of pieces that have to go together and a lot of little pins that have to go in place. But the brake cylinder is going to sit out here now, and I'll show you what we got for pedal in here. This is where the pedal sits. You can tell it's right at the top. I got plenty of mashability there, so it's good. Next thing to do, I'm going to kind of test fit the cylinder. And then I'm going to bench bleed it, and then I'm going to put it on there and start making lines. I think I can get this air conditioner hose out of my way altogether here. I moved it up here because it's in my way wherever else it was. So this is my cylinder. It will go right here. I will stick it on here, but then I'm going to take it off. We're going to bench bleed it. That's basically where you get all the air out of the cylinder itself. do that before you put it on, that way you don't have to run as much air through your brake lines in the process of getting everything set up. That looks to be just about right. So, a little adjuster here I could play with a little bit on that. I'm going to move us to a new location here, probably put this, I'm going to hook up my bleeding lines and hook this, probably put this cylinder in the vise. And then we'll do this in the garage. Today's weather looks a little iffy. It's kind of pleasant out here, but it started raining. Before I start this, I'll show you what we're doing here. This is how the brake light sending unit works on this car. This little, if I get the light and you and everything all in the right place at the right time. There you go. This button right here, see that my finger's on? That is brake light off. That is brake light on. Brake light off, brake light on. Now this used to work and something changed to make it not work. I don't know what that something was, but this had stopped working before I started messing with the brake pedal here. And like I say, I don't know how this used to get activated by that. And looking at it though, it looks like there's a piece of rubber hose and something right there, or a clamp. Kind of almost looks like somebody monkeyed with this before and came up with some sort of setup. It may or may not make any sense. Oh, here's an interesting factoid. Look. I just noticed this. That's the end of the speedometer cable. Remember we were talking about the speedometer cable and the speedometer not working? Well, it wouldn't work if it wasn't plugged in. That might make that fix a lot easier, knowing what it is. I think what I'm going to do is tie these wires back out of my way, for starters. And then that'll make it easier to focus on what we got over here, whatever that is. Now notice that there's a clamp here, and this thing is not real tight. I'm guessing what happened is this used to be adjusted out so that it would touch this, and it just slipped. I'm willing to bet if I loosen this nut, I can slide. See, there's a little shaft left back here, and this just slides through a hole in that piece of metal. Wouldn't take much to undo that, maybe possibly slide this out. You want it to come out enough so that it depresses when it touches this. I may wind up putting a little piece of metal on the side of the pedal here too. But before I do that, let's just see how much adjustment space I got. I may be able to get fairly close to where we need to be without modifying the pedal. That is a thought. Yeah, I fixed the brake light problem. I'm going to show you what I did. This brake system came with a unit, a brake light activation switch. Now this is the old switch that was in there. You can see by this clamp on here that whoever put that in there was trying to use this clamp to adjust this in and out, and also the metal piece that held this was not aimed in the right direction. I think what happened, it was also loose. At one time this touched the brake, but then that piece slipped, or this piece slipped, something slipped. I went to look at the one that came with this, and it was this little simple unit right here. Basically it's this piece. I don't feel like the light's just right. It's this little piece of metal right here, and this is the sending unit, and these are the two wires that were plugged into the old one. And when I mash the pedal, I'll try to get it where you can see the switch. You see that white part? That's the switch. And when the pedal, so when that comes out, that basically the lights go on. When it comes in, they go off. So what I did was I took the old switch out, I put the new switch in. I just stuck this on here with a clamp. It actually looks pretty okay, just like that. When I say pretty okay, it may not be that pretty, but it's okay. Yeah, I could make it prettier just by moving this clamp around so that this part is up here. I guess I might do that, and I might put a second clamp on there just for good measure. Okay, with that done, this car is drivable. The brakes are working, the brake lights are working. The brakes are working, the brake lights are working. Now, so I'm going to pull this car out of the garage and I'm going to clean the garage, because I've managed to make a goodly mess here. And one of the things I'm trying to do, now that I am retired and I have the time, is to keep my garage kind of neat and clean. But I also find that I get a lot more work and better work done when I'm not working in a huge mess all the time. So I'm going to pull the Chrysler out and do some cleaning and maybe some reorganizing, and then I'll bring it back and work on it some more. This is what I'm talking about. This and that. Yeah, I got things to do. One more thing I want to do. I didn't talk about this, but somebody installed a fuse panel under here. I don't think this was under here when that came from the factory. I think this is somebody's aftermarket setup, but it was hanging down under the dash. I'm going to reattach the bolts here. It's not terribly visible, but it's one of those things where it would probably look better if I were to stick it up out of the way a little bit more. I might have everything I need right here to do this. There's a lot of things I want to do with this car, and there's a lot of things that are kind of fun to do with it. That brake job I just did was, I wouldn't necessarily call that fun, but it certainly is worth a lot to the car to have that taken care of. Is that where my screws were? I'm going to leave my light. There's other fun things like it'd be fun to get the speedometer working. It'd be fun to get the brake, the heater working, and some stuff like that. I figured it's a good idea to screw this back into place so it's not flopping around under here. I want to lessen the opportunity for it to have a wire hit the ground and short out or something, which would just cause me more additional heartache, which I don't need. Oh, the other thing I was going to say is I don't plan to spend a lot more time working on this car right now, because we're getting ready to leave on a trip. We literally going to do some traveling in the camper, in the RV, and we're going to be gone for a month or more. But, you know, I wanted to do a little bit of this. I thought if I could get that brake job out of the way, that would really move us in the right direction a long way, so that I don't have that to look forward to when I come back. We're going to go away and then come back for the holidays and then go away again. Probably not come back till spring. It'd be nice to have this car where I could jump in it and drive it when I get back in the spring. And if I want to work on it, I can do that, but it won't be the kind of work where, you know, like when you got a flat tire or you've blown a transmission and you can't drive your car. And that's kind of the situation I was in with those brakes. I couldn't drive it because they kept locking up. But now that that's out of the way, I can come back home, jump in and drive it, work on it if I feel like it, work on something else if I don't. That'd be beautiful. In the meantime, though, there's some things I need to do around here that need to be done before we leave. So this may kind of move a little bit more toward the back of the list now that it's pretty much drivable and all. I used this wire to pull some of those other wires up out of the way and tie them off so that I could work up under here a little bit better. Oh, the progress we're making. Oh, the joy. Painting this steering wheel. See, that's another thing that could be fun. I feel like I ought to go make a bunch of videos too to get that out of the way. Oh, and I hadn't put my hubcaps back on there yet. Yeah, and I've still got only 3 lug bolts on each wheel. Those are easy things to fix. I guess I can turn y'all off while I do a little cleaning. Alrighty, I took the Chrysler out for a drive, but I drove it up to the store and back, put some gas in it, and they felt perfect. One of the things I remembered was that I never did put the seat belts back in it after I took them out to get the seats redone. But I'm not going to do any of that stuff now. And there's a kind of a list of things that are good to do to that car. But the nice thing about that car is, as it sits right now, you can just jump in it and drive it, turn the key, go wherever you want to go. I don't have any concerns about anything breaking down. I do have a front end alignment scheduled for Tuesday, and then after that I'll probably be tucking her away, throw some whatchamacallit, some seafoam in the gas tank and tuck that away for the winter. And today I'm going to restart my garage cleanup and start remaking order. One of the things I was thinking about the other day was that I've got all these things, and all these things are full of nuts, bolts, tools, various and sundry different articles of interest, especially when you're doing little projects like hanging, you know, brake light switches under a dash and things like that. But they take up a lot of space, and they also, you know, kind of take over the garage after a while, because a lot of the stuff sitting around here is stuff like that. Now, I was trying to think what would be my most efficient way of saving that stuff, because it is good stuff. It's not junk. I mean, you know, if you start looking through this stuff, you know, these are clamps, these are gauges, nuts, bolts of different sizes and shape. Those are pins. Those aren't pins. My pins are up yonder. Those are for one of those brad guns. So there's a lot of good stuff here. Having said that, it all needs to be organized someplace, and I've kind of got a big empty spot right back there. See where that window is? So there's really nothing back there. I think there might be a bag of rope sitting on the floor, and I was thinking that'd be a great place to set some shelves. And so I actually spent more money than I've ever spent on stuff like this before, but I ordered a set of garage containers that I can put that kind of stuff in. So what I'm going to be doing today is cleaning up from my mess from working on the Chrysler and reorganizing the garage using those containers, which hopefully will help me get all this stuff off that back shelf. A lot of that is specific to the Chrysler and things like that. But get that stuff organized, get this stuff organized, possibly get this stuff organized. I'm going to be moving my welders back up to there and moving that table out. So I got a good bit to do, and I'm not going to make movies of me running around the garage doing it like I sometimes do, just because I feel like y'all get tired of watching that stuff. What I'm going to do is just shut it off, do a little work. I'll come back to it and we'll shut it back on, and we'll take a look at where we're at and go from there. Okay? Okay. think this is going to keep me busy for a little while. This seems like a lot of, well, I know I'm setting up a bunch of shelves, so there's going to be a lot of nuts and bolts things. So I'm going to turn the camera off while I... Okay, there's my new cabinets. You can tell there's going to be lots of screws and nuts and bolts. I was thinking that red table would be the perfect thing to kind of work with, put all my stuff on that and get set up somewhere. I went ahead and cleaned out the mess here. I'm going to sweep all of this, and I'm going to take my welders and put them right back where they were up there after I get that all cleaned out. But before I do that, I'm going to have a little fun. There's a guy that works down at the dump. He's got an old Dodge pickup truck, and every time I go down there we talk about antique cars and Mopars, and he's got the same engine in his truck I got in my Chrysler. And I told him as soon as I got it done I was going to drive it to the dump, so I think that's just what I'm going to do. I'm going to take all this cardboard and put it in the trunk, and bag up my garbage and stuff, and just make a quick little dump run. That'll give me a chance to kind of touch base with him a little bit, and then we'll come back and get back to work creating order in here. By the way, these are my new containers that are going to go in the shelves. There's 60 of them, so that should allow me to get a whole lot of stuff organized around here. I'm going to go to a little effort as I'm doing that and try and put things in such a way where they'll be sort of easy to locate in the future, and of course that'll all help everything to go well in the future. On my way to a car show, one of the local Chrysler dealers has a Mopar car show annually. It's a Toys for Tots show, so to get in you have to bring a toy. Well, I just happen to have a toy right here. Actually, my brother gave me that a long time ago. I never did open it, and I was thinking, well, you know, I'm probably not going to play with it, but some little kid might have a lot of fun with it. It's still in the box and never been opened and all that, so that certainly serve as a workable toy. The Chrysler's running great. We're just cruising down the road. What's that line in that song? It says, eating up the road like a big old dinosaur. Well, that's what we're doing here. So we're going to head over to the show. I might stop and try to store some breakfast and some Windex along the way. Maybe I can wash my windows while I'm there, and find me a little breakfast, and find me a sunny spot to sit and pull up the shade, and yeah. The car feels great, by the way. The car's doing great. The brakes are great. I'm just really enjoying it, and I just love the look of this big old hood out here in the front. There's just something about that just gets me all excited. It makes me breathe hard, I'm just saying. Okay, 63 Impala, if you're watching this, you know exactly what I'm talking about. See you now. Know what you're going to see up here in Maine.
Okay, my ticket.
Oh yeah?
Raining today, but I don't mind. We need the rain. It's okay with me. So, I want to give a shout out to Brian Moab, and I'm probably not pronouncing his name right. It's spelled something like M-O-0 or M-O-0-A-B. Anyway, I've been talking to him on YouTube for a long time. He said to me, you have your calipers on the wrong side. And he said the bleeder valve needs to be higher than the part of the caliper that holds the fluid. And I thought, well, yeah, that makes all the sense in the world. And I came out and looked, and I went online and looked at a few, and I thought, well, by golly, he's absolutely right. So I took the calipers and the calipers and the pads and everything off the other side. I brought them over to this side to put them on so that the bleeder valve is on top instead of on the bottom, which made the line a lot easier to line up. I was having a little bit of a problem connecting that line before, but now you can get a ratchet extension and a 12 millimeter 6-point wrench right on that, and that makes it all a lot easier. So they're all in the right place. The pads are facing the right direction. I always check that. It's really easy to put a pad on backwards. That won't work. And so I'm ready to bleed them now. Yesterday I went to the store and bought me, I had a pressure vacuum bleeder that I got from the fellow that gave me that Jeep, Steve. This was in all of his stuff. And it almost would work to do what I wanted to do, but I need a cup that's airtight so that I can pull fluid out and have it go down into the cup rather than go into the gun. And I didn't have that cup. I had a lot of little pieces of cups, and I had my old bleeder cup. So I'm going to use that bleeder gun. I've got it in the house to bleed the brakes on this. And this should be the last time. After this, everything should be good. Put them all back together, and even though it's rainy, I'll go for a little ride around the yard in it. Take it out on the big road if the sun comes out, and it may come out later today. But you know, I don't profess to be a professional, and I'm not. I've messed around with cars all my life. That don't mean I know anything, and I make mistakes, and sometimes YouTubers catch me making a mistake and you point it out to me, and I don't mind. You know, sometimes me and 63 Impala joke around about, you know, people will tell you something that you already know, or something that doesn't make any sense, you know, and that's one thing. But also, you guys are very good at, I'm not including you, Mr. Comatose, because we all know of your special skills and limitations and opportunities, so we're not going to get into that in this video. But the rest of you, I appreciate you, and feel free to chime in and tell me when I'm doing it wrong, because I often do wrong, even if I don't intend to. So I'm not going to talk about that anymore. I'm just going to bleed these brakes and get the tires back on here and take her out for a spin. Hopefully the rain will at least stop in a little while. Okay? Okay. Alrighty, so she's stopping good. I want to get this brake light situation, kind of get a handle around that, so I might crawl up under the dash again there and see what it takes to fix that and make it right.